users could actually create para sa iyang program. And what is the relevance of having types in programming? Sige daw, ano to, nakahinomdo pa ba? Unsa ba tayo gamitan ng type, no? Okay. What do we use types for? Okay, for inspiration. Okay, kamo guys. Kung naamoy type, okay, or what is type to you? In your own words. Sige. Lingaw lagi kayong payag. That was a question. It needs some answers. Sige, sige. Manawag ko ha. Okay, so be it dili voluntary. Okay, so mangutan natin ni... So, sige na magtubag si Mr. Sumalinog dire. Probably, let's call on... kisa may tawagon nato dire. Oh, sayang nga si Texon. Unta ito kong tawagon niya. Di left naman. Okay, so how about Codino? Okay, what can you say about type?
Kuan sir, mura siya property design na nag-set og rules sa programming. Taon sa iyang role na po like int. Kaya para siya sa mga variable numbers nga whole numbers then like sa float kay para sa mga decimals. So para mag na siya rules.
So, naa siya rules. Okay, so muna yung keyword, rules. Okay, sige. Who else would like to try? Okay, sige lang, there's no wrong answer here, guys. So, ato ang tanawon, unsa may understanding ninyo aning type? Okay? Base sa ato ang subject for one semester, unsa may nasabtan ninyo anang data types? Okay? Unsa may relevance na niya sa programming? Okay? So, as according to Mr. Codeno, it's like a set rules. Okay? So, pwede ta makagamit og int, float. Okay? So, who else? How about Mr. Valisado? Okay? Unsa ika-share nimo Mr. Valisado?
I think sir kung wala ang type sir kay probably dili mahimo guro ang code sir.
Kung walay type, dili mahimo ang
Code.
code.
Kay
Okay?
atong int sir float na itong mga variable.
Mga variables. Okay? Pag-create of variables. Okay? Sige. At wala na tanaw niya. Well, okay. According to Mr. Kabag, allows the programmer to overcome the limits from the reserved types like int, char, float, etc. and create one of his own. Overcome the limits from the reserved types. Wakay ko kagets ano. In layman's term, Mr. Kabag, how would you say this or rephrase this? Okay? Kung bisayon pa sa imong nasabtan. Okay?
Sa akong nasabtan sir kay ang class kay mag-allow nimo og mag-create. What I meant by limit is that di ba sa integer kay solely numbers na siya and then for float decimal point then that would overcome the limit that it has using class type so that the programmer can create one of his own anang helpful sa ihang program.
Unsa may i-create niya nga
Like a
one of
different
his
set of
own.
rules. Something na sir.
Okay. Sige, sige. How about Miss Tuto? Okay? Sa imong own understanding, unsa may nakita nimo or nasabtan nimo about types?
To be specific, sir.
To be specific. Specific in terms of
Kaning pag-store sa data.
pag-store sa data. Okay, so according to Ms. Toto, when you're talking about types, it has something to do with how we store our data. Okay? So, kana. Usapod na siya. Okay, sige. So, for me, okay, when we are talking about data types, okay, so mukuha lang ko sa gisulti ni Mr. Codino ganina, it's it defines certain rules, okay, about those variables nga imong i-create once ma-define nimo hiyang type. And also, according to Ms. Toto, okay, when you use data type, it also dictates, okay, how much storage is used in the computer's memory. So, ing ani man gud ni siya. Let's say for example, di ba? Moingon kag int, okay? Moingon ka og long. They're basically the same. They store whole numbers. Di ba, guys? Pero what's the difference between the two? Nganong ipalahi man jud si int o ipalahi man sad si long. Okay? Do you still remember what's the difference between an int type and a long type? Okay, nakahinomdom pa hala nalimot na sila unsay gamit anang long ug unsay gamit sa int. Okay? Which of the two can store more data?
Ang long, sir, kay 64-bit, mangguro to.
Okay? Ya ang integer
32.
32. Okay, and sometimes it depends on the programming language and the system being used. Okay? Both integer and long can store whole numbers. Pero ang range sa number nga pwede na to ma-store between int and long differs based on the size. Okay? So take note, when you define a data type, you are actually also controlling how much storage will be utilized by this variable that has been declared with this type. Okay? Unsay relevance ana niya sa programming. Okay? Ang relevance ana niya sa programming is you can better manage your resources. So take note, when you create a variable, di ba? Unsa may gamit anang variable, it's like a storage on your computer that would store values, di ba? Related to the type. So imagine, okay? If ay wala ko'y pen. Yeah. Ngita tag unsa may pwede na to ma-drawing kani. So imagine if this is the computer's memory. Okay? And you will be creating a variable. Okay? Let's say a variable nga long. So it can occupy this space here. Okay? Now imagine if again, this is the computer's memory. Now instead of using long, nagamit kag int. So in a way, this is how your memory is managed inside it. Okay? So, di ba, ang int is basically murag katunga lang sa long. Okay? Now, looking at the two illustration, guys, unsay ma-conclude ninyo? Okay? What can you conclude from that illustration?
Mas
Anyone?
daghan mas store sa concern sa long kaysa sa int.
Mas daghang ma-store sa long kaysa sa int. Okay? So that means kung nakay number ibutang dire, di ba? Dako kay na siya nga numero 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on and so forth. But kung ani ka sa integer, ang size sa imong value would be limited lang because of the size of the storage. Okay? So, mo nay difference nga makita na to based on the illustration. Okay? What else have you noticed? Okay? Sige, ang na to kaning mga himantayon, be. Marites. Go.
Kuan sir, kanang sa int sir kaupat siya gibahin diri sa long sir kay katulo.
Katulo siya gibahin. That is just an example. I could actually put more. Okay? So what if I put more integer variables? Okay, so let's say if I put in more variables. Okay, so that means ing ani ang itsura. Sa long, if I declare more long variables, this is what it will look like. Okay, so unsay ato ang nabantayan?
Ang int sir murag half ra sa long.
Okay, so ang storage sa int, half ra sa long. Okay, now mangutan ako. If I am to create variables, okay, kinsa may mas advantageous in terms of numbers of variables created? Okay, so we know that long can store more data. Ang int stores half the data of what long can store. Okay? However, kung magtan-aw ta, kung mag-create ka og variables in your memory using the two different data types, mas daghan kang variables nga ma-declare using int. Kaya nga naman, mas gamay man siyang space makaon sa memory as compared sa long. Okay? Now, sometimes we would think that mas nidot man jud ang long kay dako man siya. Naanad man gud ta bigger is better. Okay? But not all the time. Bigger is better. Okay? In cases like this, okay? If you are creating an application and this application nga imong gi-create has let's say definite range of values wherein you work on. Let's say ang range of values ng imong trabahoon ranges lang somewhere between 0 to 1,000. Okay? Would it be better to make use of long, or would it be more efficient to use a long compared to the int type for that? Kabaw ka nga ang range nimo would only be from 1 to 1,000 or 0 to 1,000. Okay, if you use long, you will be wasting a lot of space in the memory. Di man nimo ma-maximize ang iyang gamit as compared to int, which is katunga raman. Kung pwede gani pagamiyan pa short int, then do so. Since kabaw naman ka pilay range sa imuhang memory nga ma-consume for each variable. Okay? So, knowing the type nga imuhang gamiton would actually help manage your memory better. So, probably karong panahon naman good, tungod sa technology wherein ang memory sa computer nato is not a problem because dako naman kayo ang memory sa ato ang mga gadgets like the computer perhaps or the cell phone. A lot of programmers don't mind defining variables using smaller data types. Kay total, wa may problema sa memory. Okay? Murag baingon ra mag sky is the limit. But later, if you will be working with a machine which has a limited resources, anha na ka makapangaut sa ulo. Okay? So, kana guys, usa sa advantage of why we need to know about data types. And also, one of the relevance of knowing the data types is you will know what operators ang pwede nimong magamit on those particular data types. Okay? So, nadir atong gisulti na to ganina, rules that is accompanied by the data types. Like, let's say, for example, if you use addition operation. Okay? So, kabauta, magamit na nato siya for mga numerical-based data types like int and float. Okay? But when you will be talking about um, characters, okay, if you add characters, pwede ramang gihapon, but the result would not make sense. Diba? Kaya ba kag A plus B. Okay? Unsa may musod sa imong huna-huna when you use A plus B. Okay? Diba? You simply can't do addition on characters. Pero if you program that, it will actually generate an output, which is basically kwaon lang niya ang numerical or ASCII code ni A o ASCII code ni B, mo to i-add niya. Okay? But the result, again, wouldn't make sense. Okay? So, when you are working with float, okay, can you use the modulo operator with float? Okay? So, di ba, dili. Okay? Modulo operation is an operator solely for whole numbers. Okay? So, mausad na siya ang usa na sa dapat natong i-appreciate with data types. So, the data types would actually define how your data would behave. Okay? So, muna siya guys. Okay? Relevance ni types. Okay? Now, let's look here. This keyword is something new to us. Wala ni siya sa C programming. Okay? So one of the very important concepts when we are dealing with object-oriented programming. Okay? So kanang keyword nga class. Okay? So we use that keyword class as stated to specify a name. Okay? And it has the so-called body, in which the body is enclosed in a curly brace. Okay? So in a way, kung we step back and revisit C programming, gigamit na natong curly brace to determine the so-called, unsa ganito guys, statement block. Okay? So just like when you create a function, just like when you make use of switch statement, or just like when you use loops and conditional statement, natay gitawag na statement block, okay, which is used to identify unsa nga mga statements na belong ana nga let's say loop statements or conditional statement ba or function ba. Okay? Now, when talking about C# code, okay? So most C# code are placed inside a class. Okay? So when you are working with C# programming language, there will be no such thing as a global variable. There will be no such thing as a so-called global method. Okay? Do you still remember the term, guys? Global. How do you create a global variable? Okay? Sige, ang kahinumdum pa ba? How do you create a global variable? Where do you declare this global variable? Okay, anyone? Sige daw. Let's call on nilakaw man si Mr. Texon. Let's call on Miss Swan. Sige, Miss Swan. Ano to? Nakahinumdum pa ba sa C programming? How do you declare a global variable? Global. So, pasabutan ng global, guys? Global variable. Global methods. Okay.
A variable that exists of all throughout the program, sir.
Okay, a variable that exists throughout the program. Okay. Kung nawagtang si Miss Swan. I would like to hear Miss Swan's voice. How about you guys? Do you also want to hear Miss Swan's voice? Si Alessandra Swan? Okay, paminaw na to ang ihang tingog. Miss Swan, are you still with us? Hello? It is written before the main function. Okay? So, mao ni ang definition ni Miss Swan to what a global variable is. Okay? So, when we say global, okay, base sa ato ang discussion last time with C programming, these are variables declared outside the statement block. Okay? So, pwede po siya, okay, before the main method or the main function. Okay? So, kabauta nga ang variable na to once declared, pwede siya kanang gitawag nga global, pwede po siya tawgon nga local. Tawgon na to ang variable nga global if the variable has been declared outside kaning gitawag nato nga statement block. But if the variable is declared within the statement block, that variable will only exist and can be used inside the statement block. But if the variable is declared outside the statement block, let's say for example, outside the function, then pwede rada magamit pod sa ubang functions. Okay? Makita ra na siya nga variable sa ubang functions. Okay? However, in C#, take note, there will be no such thing as a global variable. Okay? So, kasagarang variable dira is considered as local. There will also be no global methods. Okay? So, pasabot dayan na, sir, kung mag-create tag method, anhi din na nato makita ang method sa sulod sa, so na siya, sa sulod sa another statement block. Okay, yes. Okay. Methods will be located inside another statement block. Methods cannot exist as itself, as a global method. Okay. One thing man good, guys, when you talk about object-oriented programming, just to give you a feature, okay, the way we program here in OOP is concentrated not just on the process, not just on the algorithm, on how things are to be done. Okay? In OOP programming, okay, we look things in an object level. So that means, let's say, for example, okay, in OOP programming, everything is an object. Unsa ng object? Let's say you have a ball. Okay, this is a ball. Okay, that is considered as an object. In OOP programming, you can actually make a code out of this ball. Okay? Like, kung maghimo kag program about a ball, unsa may ganahan nimong i-appeal sa imong program? Okay? When you create this ball. Okay? Sige, kamo guys.
Color, sir.
Oh, kana, di ba? Nay color. You can define a color for this ball. Unsa pa? Oh, the size. Di ba? Oh, unsa pa pwede natong ma-define or ma-appeal nga information when creating a program about this ball? The shape. Oh, sige, appealan na tong shape. Kay pwede man din no ang bula gamiton, bula sa football. So, di siya circle. Okay? So, unsa pa? Size, color, shape. Unsa pa kaha? Material. Okay. Kay kung mahalon, agtod jud sa leather. Niya, wa may budget. adto lang sa rubber, sa material. Okay? So, in an object, okay, these are what we call as properties. Okay? So, manay gitawag nato nga properties sa ball, which is pwede na nimo ma-create as a program that defines your ball. Okay? Now, naghisgot siya method. Unsa man ang method? Method are basically, guys, synonymous with the word function. Okay? Do you still remember functions? Okay? Unsa ganitong function? Okay? Sa C programming, do you still remember unsa ng function? Anyone? Okay, unsa ganitong function? How did we use function in C? Okay, so basically function is like a set of operations, di ba? Nga pwede nimong matawag using a single reference name, which is the function name. Okay? Now, when you are talking about object-oriented programming, okay, we refer to function as methods. Okay? So when you say methods, essentially, these are actions that are associated with this object ball. Okay? So that means kaning properties basically murag variables. Okay? When you talk about color, pwede na nimo assignan o kanang gitawag na string. When you say size, pwede ka maka-create og variable and we call it as unsa man integer, di ba? For the size. Sa shape unsa man? Probably string again. Sa material, again, another string. Okay? So, mo ang mga properties. Pwede nimo magamitan og basic data types. However, when you talk about methods, kaning methods, guys, are like actions na gi-perform ni ball. Like, unsa man ang mga actions nga pwede buhaton sa bola.
Bounce.
Bounce, di ba? Oh. So, mo na example, bounce. Okay? So, since that is a method, that is a function, posible na siya'y, si tawag na to ani, sa function, what do we call this? Kaning enclose in parentheses, what do we call that part of the function? Nalimot na sila. Okay, what do we call that part of the function? Okay. Anyone? Okay, mo na ito ang gitawag nga arguments or parameters. Okay, tara. So, sumaudyo pagkasulti o pagka-type ni Mr. Sorelta. Those are the parameters. Okay? So, pwede ta magbutang ana sa ito ang gitawag na methods because methods are essentially functions in C. So, take note, kanang method or action dapat naasad na nato gibutang inside the class. So, kanang gitawag nato nga variables, anhiro na nimo ma-declare inside the class.
Kini nga damgo magpabiling damgo lang gyud.
Okay? So, mo na giingon niya. Again, unsa ng class? We use it to define a new type.
Kini nga damgo magpabiling damgo lang gyud.
It's a way for us to create an object, like for example, kaning ball. Okay? So you can say that the class, pwede ka mag-create og imuhang name, which is class ball. And inside the class ball, i-define mo dira ang variables that you will be using to store the information for the color, the size, the shape, and the material. O sa kanang imuhang object nga ball, pwede ka mag-add og method like bounce. Okay? So, unsa may nindot parameter ibutang sa bounce? Like, let's say, butang ba nimo ang height to which the ball is dropped. So mo return siya og let's say integer, the number of times nga mo bounce siya. Okay? So things like that. Okay? And that is the concept of object-oriented programming. Everything is considered as an object. So sa programming, pwede nimo i-interpret pud gani day ang tao as an object. So if you are gonna be creating a person, okay, you just say class person. Nya, unsa may mga properties nga pwede nimo ibutang that would define a class person. So of course, height, weight, color, number of eyes, the size of the nose, okay? So things like that. Nya, sa methods, unsa may pwede nato mabutang sa method nga pwede nato i-associate with a class person. Okay? So again, methods are like functions. What is the function of a person? So, pwede mo butang kag eat, sleep, jump, play, okay? Almost anything. Okay? Basta anything nga related to what a person can do. Okay? So, mo na murag essential guys. Okay? Basic concepts in object-oriented programming. Okay? So, gamit kaayo ang kanang keyword nga class in OOP. Okay? So, proceed to the next part. Next is the so-called main method. Okay? So, as what we have learned sa C programming, when you have this so-called main method, it also serves as the entry point of our program. Kung sa may pasabot anang entry point sa imong program, pasabot ana bisag daghan kay kag function dira because main is also a function or a method. Okay? Di ba sa C program, mag-create kag multiple functions, ipadagan nimo sa imong program. Asa man ang unang padaganon nga function sa C program? Di ba si main? Okay? So the same is true here in C#. Okay? So kung kinsa nga method ang nag-contain anang main nga method, maunay una niyang iparan. Okay? Mo naging nga serves as the entry point of the program. Okay, bisag unsa pa nakataas imong program, kung di na niya makit-an si static void main, dili na siya mo run ang imong program. Okay? So as what we can see, there might be some changes here on the way we define the main method. Okay? When you are defining the main method in C, M is small letter. But in C#, it should be written in capital. Just like C, guys, C# is case sensitive. Okay? So, when you are using a character na big letter o small letter, they will be treated differently. Okay? So, apart from that, okay, kung nana kay function name or method name, you define the return type. So, okay, parihara sa C. Okay? However, when you are creating the main method, you must put the keyword static. Okay? Do you still remember unsa nang static keyword sa C programming? Okay? So, na-discuss ni nato pero I think murag kadyot ra kay ito siya. Okay, unsay gamit anang static na keyword. Okay? Anyone remembers the static keyword in C programming? Hala, na jud sila kahinumdum. Okay? So, anyone who remembers what a static keyword is and why it is used in C programming? Okay, so how about Miss Carbos? Naa kay ikapunoan ni Miss Carbos? Hala. Namahaw naman siguro sila daan. Wa mo mga ganda. Hello, guys, girls. Are you still with me? Or am I all alone in this classroom? Okay. Unsa man ni? Naay ni answer sa chat box. Villa Campa. Asa ni siya? Sa static na keyword. Sa static. Okay. So, unsa man ni? A function that has a scope na limited ra ang iyahang object file. So, you are referring to static method. In particular, dili ang keyword nga static. Okay. So,
Gaurong ra sir.
unsa to?
Gaurong sir.
Gaurong
Static.
static. Okay, so literal jud day na static, no? So wala maglihok kay static, dili dynamic. Okay? So ambot lang if you've remembered, okay, before when we were talking about methods, okay? So natay ani, di ba, void, let's say count, and then sige, mas maayo siguro ang nato ipakita para ma-demonstrate nato. Okay? Oops. Let me open lang sa my Embarcadero. Okay. So if we, let's say, call a function count, okay? So let's create a function here na count. Okay. So we say int I. So let's say ato ang initialize of 0 and we just say print if counting %d, and we put in there the value of I. Okay, so something like this. Okay. So if we keep on calling the function count, okay, unsa expected natong mugawas diri guys sa ato ang output. Of course, since gitawag nato 4 times si count, so kaning word na counting would also appear 5 times. Okay? However, unsay value ni I nga ma-display diri sa ato ang function? Okay? Unsay gamit? Okay, so kani wala pa ta magamit og static. So let me just show you that one. Og i-save lang sa likadjot. Okay. So running the program would result into something like this. Okay? So of course, wa man nato giusab ang value ni I. Di ba? So every time you call the function, since I here is initialized to 0, it will be displayed as I, or a gyapon. Okay, so modifying the program, I'll put I++. Okay? So, something like this. So, nga to ang padagana to ang program. Okay? Unsa may expected na tong output na guys? Would it still be 0 or mag-increment ang count niya? Okay?
Mag-increment, sir.
So, running the code, mo ani ni gawas. Wala siya mo increment. Okay? Kay nganong wala man siya mo increment, nga naa man na siya plus. Okay? Wala na loop. Okay? Wa man siya loop. Okay? So, post increment. Mo nang wala
Answer.
mo wala mo change, no?
Inig ko answer. Dagan sa function kay mobalik siya I equals to 0.
Okay. So, take note, guys. Take note. Every time you call the function, okay, it creates this information in the memory. And in creating this information in the memory, ang I, sudlan niya 0. So, counting D, unsay D, ibutang niya for the value of I, 0 gihapon. So, mo na ang ma-display 0. I-add nimo, I becomes 1. But take note, the moment nga mo exit ka sa function, all those variables created in the memory, the moment you exit the statement block is destroyed. Mo na gitawag nato nga ang sulod sa statement block, okay, the moment that you exit the statement block, all those variables that were defined within the statement block gets destroyed. Mo nagiin mo nato nga ang ihang life sa variable only exists within the statement block. Kaya kung ma-end sa statement block, mawagtang na tanang variables di-create mo. So that's why, every time you call the function, it recreates that variable, okay, displays its value, which is 0, then anha pa i-increment, and the moment mo exit dire, mapapas tanang value. Okay? So that's why, ang iyahang ma-display dire is 0 radyo. However, if you use the keyword static, okay, that will actually change the scope of the variable I. Instead nga ang life ni variable I only exists in this statement block, the scope of I will be more or less similar to how global variables are working or are interpreted. Okay, so as you can see, ang ako ang giad lang is a static keyword. And I run this program again. Now, if I becomes a global variable, okay, that means even if you accept the function, the I variable will continually exist in the memory until you end the entire program. Okay? And every time you call this function again, it will not initialize and declare the I anymore in the memory. Ipadayon rato niya kung unsay last value niya. And that's why if I run the program, as you can see here, naabot siya 3. Nganong naabot mag 3, sir? Nga every time mo sud siya og function, mo initialize man siya 0. Again, using this keyword static enables you to modify the scope and life of your variable, making it appear and behave like a global variable nga pwede ma-access sa gawas. Okay? Or rather, pwede nimo magamit bisan pag ni-end na ang life niya from within the statement block. The difference lang jud between a global variable and a local variable that has been declared as static is that you cannot use the variable I outside the scope of where it was declared. Like for instance, if you use the global variable I, pwede na nimo ma-access diri si I, di ba? You can say I5, like something like this, if that is a global variable. But since it is a static variable, ang kaning variable nga ay dili makit-an. Kay nga naman, ang I, mailhan lang within the statement block. So, manang kung imong i-compile, mo error na siya as undeclared. Kay si main, wala kailan ni I. Kay kana si I, naka-register lang na ihang pangalan from this statement block. Okay? Pero inside the memory, because you have declared this as static, it will continue to live in the computer's memory until such time nga mahuman og dagan ang main function. Okay? So that is how we use the static keyword here in C. Okay? Now, more or less, pari-pareha pod nagibuhat si static nga keyword diri sa C#. It also modifies not only the variable but actually also the function. Okay? So, declaring a function as static means that this function here kas ara jud ani mo magamit. Okay? So, sagyan lang. We will be discussing more about static keyword when we move on to the object-oriented programming. Okay? But for now, okay, think of this nga kung magpadagan kag program, dapat ang main function should be capital M and it should also have that keyword static. How about si void, sir? Mandatory ba na siyang always void? Okay, no. You could actually also change that to int. Pwede ra po na siya sa int. Okay? Pwede ra na ni mo usbon. Okay? Unsa pa man. Okay? So, just like sa C programming, since this is a function, pwede ra po na siya maka-receive o kanang gitawag natong arguments or parameters. Okay? So, basically, ang structure sa imong C# program, dili day siya purely main diretso ang imuhang code. You need to put this main method inside the class. Since again, as stated earlier, there are no such thing as global method. And the main is a method. Okay? So, sige. For now, ato na lang sa nang dawaton. Okay? That your main method should always be static. And just like in C, the main method will always serve as the entry point of your program. Okay? So, moving forward, okay? These are the data types na pwede nato magamit in C#. Okay, now, Boolean. Okay, this is something nga wala ninyo maagian in C language. Okay? Unsa man ang bool. Okay, so as stated there, a Boolean is a data type which represents true or false. Okay? Now, we have learned in C programming nga when you talk about Boolean, kung 0, it is synonymous with false. If it is non-zero, it is synonymous with true. Okay? Di ba? Mamana siya. Okay? Do you still remember that, guys? Okay? So, just to just to demonstrate. Okay? So, mugamit tag if statement. So, if let's say bayon kag 1, okay? Mo na tag this is true. Okay? So, mo na siya kung 1. Considered na siya as true. So, if we run this statement, mupakita yun na this is true. Okay? So as stated, non-zero. So that means kung -1 na siya, that still is considered as non-zero. So therefore, the statement still is considered as true. However, if ang value nga mabutang dire is 0, that's the time consider na to ang expression to be false. So as you can see, when I run this code, wala mo gawas ang this is true because this statement, once evaluated, will be considered as false. Okay? So, mo na siya guys. Okay, ang value nga 1 o 0. Okay? So, in C#, okay, that actually has been modified, okay, to better identify if the statement ba jud is true or false, tinuod ba og dili. Gahimo jud sila og data type for that purpose. And that data type is being called as bool. Okay? So that means kani nga data type usual kani siya gamiton if you are working with Boolean operators. Okay? Unsa to'y example sa Boolean operators? Okay? Sige daw, ano itong maka-enumerate ba mo? What are the example of Boolean operators? What operators do we use para maka-evaluate ta og true or false? Okay, kana. Double ampersand. The AND operator. Okay, what else? Okay. So, kana, gamit na to as your comparison operator. Okay? Is not equal or, okay? Or, pwede po ang, unsa ganito guys? Unsa to'y pasabot ani? Okay, sa the not operation. Okay, so those are the Boolean operation we often use in programming. Okay? So instead nga makakita tag value dira nga 1 o 0, ang pwede na nimong makita dira is this value nga true or false. So gi-improve na siya diri sa C#. So we also have characters. Again, not much of a difference in C programming. So naatay S byte. Okay? Naputi gitawag nga byte. Ug unsa may kalahi ni S byte ug ni byte aside from the letter S nga nawagtang diri sa byte. So makita nato diri guys, signed and unsigned. Okay? Unsa to'y pasabutan ng signed ug unsigned? Do you still remember that one, guys? Okay, so as you can see, for that data type nga byte, the size of the storage is only 8 bits. Okay. So asa may giapil ang negative numbers or negative integers ani? So nagi-type si Mr. Canonigo. Okay, so signed. Okay, so when you say signed, na ay negative, na ay positive. Okay. How about the unsigned? Okay. So when you say unsigned, unsa man na dira ang expected nato nga value nga makita? Counting numbers ra. Okay, very good. No positive values. Okay? So unsay advantage of using signed and unsigned nga data type or kaning gitawag nato nga modifier for your integer types? Okay? What are those mga relevant things nga inyong nakita ana guys? Bitaw nung wala mag-create kog variable, dapat man akong i-define nga signed ug unsigned. Okay? So this is something that you should always remember when you are using data types. Okay? So again, just like what I have told you earlier, it is to maximize the use of memory. Okay? So when you say sign, okay, naatay gitawag nga negative value nga i-represent niya until sa positive value nga iyahang i-represent. Okay? So, when you are using signed integer, the range of the number that will be supported by S-byte would only be from 128 up to positive 127. Okay? And if you are using byte na unsigned, the range of values that will be representing the unsigned integer will be from 0 to 255. Okay? So, if I ask you, asa may mas daghan og number nga kaya ma-represent sa kani nga data type? Si S-byte or C byte? So, we know they are both 8-bit. But in terms of range, which one has the bigger range? Si S-byte or C byte? Okay, very good. Same ra na siya range. Kay nga naman. Okay, so we know that the bit represent the storage size. So since 8-bit man siya puros, parihar na siya kadaka ang storage. And how do they differ? They differ in terms of the data na gi-represent sa matag usa ka data type. So when you are using unsigned, ing-ani ang range niya from 0 to a positive value. Pero when you're using signed, ang katunga niya represents only the positive value and the lower is representing the negative values. Pero parihar ni siya og size. Okay? So, ging-ana lang siya. Ang usa nag-start sa 0 until positive. Ang usa nay positive, nay negative. But essentially, parihara na siya size. Okay? So, how is this relevant, knowing this information? Again, if you are working on numbers, nga let's say, for example, 0 to 200. Okay? Ang wala kabaw ni guys about the relevance of using signed and unsigned might as well make use of short data type. Kaya nga naman, 16 bits man. Okay? So, mas taas-taas og range, mga around 16,000. Okay? Mao nagkungwa siya kabaw sa concept sa unsigned og signed. So that means if you create a variable using the short data type, you will be using 16 bits to store that information. Ya, sayang kaayo kay nga naman. If your value nga store is only from 0 to 255, pwede ra man na ma-represent using 8 bits. But instead, if you use 16 bits, you will be using 8-bit of memory. Okay? So, muna, something most programmers are not actually practicing. Kana bang efficiency sa memory usage. Kay karon na kung panahon na, again, memory has been cheap and a lot of programmers, basta mudagan na ang program, okay na. Dili niya i-optimize ang iyang program as to what or how efficient you manage your memory usage. Okay? So, mo nang usahay na yung mga programs dira nga magamit ninyo, nga kusog kay muhang up. Di ba? Kay nganong muhang up man, dugay gigamit, mapuno ang memory. So, what do? You close the application and open it again. Di ba? To free up the memory. So, applications like that are not well made. Okay? Wala siya maayo pagkaplano. Okay? So anyway, mao na siya guys, ang ato ang integer types. So there are other variations as you can see. Natay short, which is for 16 bits, for integer 32-bit, for long na 64-bit. Okay? Both has the signed and unsigned version. Okay? So, of course, special formatting para sa kaning nga variables kung mo declare ka og kanang gitawag nato nga constant value, okay? Pwede nimo butangan og L or U, okay? For the long and U long. You could also specify U if it is unsigned. Okay, that is for the bigger data types. Okay, so of course, kung na integer types, na po yung mga floating point type. Okay, so sa C, we were only limited to floats and doubles. Diba? However, in C sharp, there is this data type nga decimal. Okay, which could actually increase its storage size up to 128-bit. So imagine kung namoy store nga information dira with lots of 0.000 something, then go for decimal. But also take note, it consumes a lot of memory as compared to float. So kung naalang kay, let's say, if you are creating a system that involves your grade, okay, which one would you use? Float, double, or decimal? Okay, float. Okay, nganong float man? Okay, sige, why use float, Mr. Villacampa? Kung sa may advantage sa float compared sa decimal? Yes, Mr. Villacampa, are you still here? Pwede ra, mustorya ka, Mr. Villacampa. Para dili kayo kapoy mag-type. Dili kas og storage. Okay. So, kana. So, usa pa sad, di ba, ang range sa grado nato naaraman sa 1 to 5. Og ang decimal places sa ato ang grado is 1 decimal place raman pod. Di ba? So, useless kayo nga mogamit kag decimal for that particular data nga imong store. Di ba? So, mo na we use the float. Okay? However, if let's say for example, ang gi-store nimo dira nga information is let's say Bitcoin information, di ba? So probably you will be thinking about, okay, anhi ko sa decimal kay ngano man. It can store more floating point numbers. So every 0.00001 matters. Okay? Pila nagay exchange rate ron sa Bitcoin? Okay, updated ba mo ana? Wala na. Wala. Why response? Okay, so anyway, so we already have the boolean, the character, integer, floating point, and finally we have the string. Oh, updated si Canonigo. 2M ang 1 Bitcoin? Pag sure, uy, 2M na. Dakuan na this Bitcoin ro, no? Sus, kung ipalit ang Bitcoin sa una, sayang sa Bitcoin ato. Anyway. Saon na lang, sana all. Okay, so anyway, the last simple data type that is supported by C# is a string. Okay, so this is something nga wala sa C nga data type. Okay, in C data type, for you to be able to store a string, you make use of, unsat ganito? You make use of character data type and arrays. Okay, so that is how we store string in C programming. But in C#, it has been made easier. Okay, so na-create po siya og data type, they call it as a string. Okay, and we use that to store a sequence of characters. Okay, so as defined, a string is basically a sequence of characters. So since we are talking about sequence or collection, kung sa C pa, we make use of array. But of course, in C, since C sharp is like an improvement of the previous programming language which comes before it like C and C++, daghan jud kaayon siyang mga modifications di pang add to make it easier for us programmers. Okay? So, mo na siya guys ang types. Okay? In C sharp. Okay? So, let's move on here to the local variable declaration. How do you declare a variable in C sharp? Okay? So, again, as stated, there is no such thing as a global variable. So that means di ka pwede mag-declare of variable outside the class. So di ni siya pwede, let's say mo kag int w. Okay? So di ni siya pwede kay ngano man outside man siya sa scope sa class. Okay? So kani it was found inside the class. So that means ang kanipod nga variable would only exist within the statement block, guys. Okay? So again, applicable gyapon diri katong nakatuna nato sa C. So since gi-declare nini mo nga variable within this statement block, take note ang iyang life or ang access nimo nga variable will only exist within that statement block. Okay? However, if you want to access a variable outside the main method but still within the class, just make sure you declare that variable, okay, still within the statement block. Okay, so ingana. So if you have this variable A, this is still considered as a local variable kay ngano man gisud man nimo sa statement block. Pero ang scope ani niya mas dako-dako kay ngano man they are on the same level as of this function or method. That means kanang si A pwede po na nimo ma-access within the static void method. Okay? So mora na ang concept guys kanang sa scopes sa variable. Tan-awon lang nimo asa siya nga statement block na belong. Okay? So here in the local variable initialization, okay, we can use literal value or expression. So this is our literal value. Okay, so the actual value that is stored in your variable. Okay, and you can also use expressions. So this one, these are your expressions. But of course, make sure that when you create this expression, ang kaning mga variables were already declared. Okay? So di pwede nga moingon kag int area niya sa ubos ana pa nimo i-define si width ug si height kay nganuman during compilation kung wala nimo gipaila-ila daan di ka pwede makagamit ana. Okay? So dapat ila-ilahon sud yun na sa compiler ang mga variables before niya magamit sa imong program. Okay? So mo na siya guys. Unya, an example here, you need to take note about the initial value of a variable. Okay? Now in C, we often make this mistake in C. When you declare a variable, sometimes, okay, a lot of programmers don't initialize their value. Okay? So sa C programming, dawaton raman niya bisag walay initialization ang variable nimo kay ngano man it will just throw in there a garbage value. Okay? But here in C sharp, makakause na siya compile error. If you don't initialize your variable and imuha day na siyang gigamit on an expression. Okay? Kay nganong mo error man na siya sa C sharp. Sa C, dili ra lagi. It's because it is a very dangerous practice. Okay? In C, x could have any value, any integer value. Imagine the problem if you suddenly use that variable without initializing it. Ang value ni y dire is a random value. Mag-usab-usab na siya. Depende kung unsang garbage value ang na-store kang x. Okay? So, muna para malihayan ang nga mga uncertainty sa program, okay, iyaha yung gi-design ang compiler such that if makakita ka di siyang variable nga wala may initialize din nagamit sa expression, it will generate a compile error. Okay? Reminding the programmer that what you are doing is dangerous. You need to initialize x first. Okay? So, mas bright-bright ng mga compiler karon. Okay? Pero mas bright jud ang mga programmer sa una. Kaya nga naman, ang mga programmer sa una, wa may mo remind nila ani. Okay? They remind themselves. Okay? Next, we have this one, type conversion. Again, this is something that is not new anymore to the concept of C programming. Okay? Unsa to'y another term na to ani guys? Kaning type conversion. Do you still remember? Okay. It also makes use of this word. Anyone? Okay, kana. Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Sumalinog and Mr. Mahusay. Type casting. Okay? So, when you perform typecasting, okay, you will be performing the so-called automatic type conversion if you are converting a smaller type padong sa larger type. Okay? So, just like for example, if you have a value of 5, then you will be assigning that integer type to a double type. You should not pose or it should not pose any error. Dawaton ra na niya. And that is what we call as implicit conversion. Okay? So, implicit kay automatic man ang pag-convert niya from one data type which is integral into a floating point type. In this case, ang double. Okay? Take note lang, implicit conversion is doable if you have a smaller data type nga imuhang i-transfer to a bigger data type. Okay? Ang idea lang ana is that kung unsay sulod sa smaller nga storage, kung imuha nang ibalhin padong sa bigger storage, no information is lost. Okay, again, gamay man siya. Any information is stored nimo to that masud ra jud without any losses. Okay? So, pwede ra na siya. However, the same thing is not applicable. For example, if you are gonna be storing a double padong sa integer. Kay nga naman, kung sa ito'y mahitabuan na guys, if you store a floating point or a floating point number to an integer number or integer variable. Okay? Unsay baliktad sa implicit? Okay? Unsay baliktad sa implicit? Okay, unsa ni nga type of conversion ang ato ang gibuhat dire. So that is a blank conversion. Okay, what is that word? X. Okay, so that is explicit conversion. Okay. So when you are doing explicit conversion, like for example, there is a possibility that you will lose information, okay, it requires a so-called cast. Okay, wherein a cast is you simply specify what data type it is that you want that D should be converted into. In this case, D is double and the programmer will instruct the computer, I know what I am doing. Okay, when I assign a double to an integer. So, for the computer to know nga it's not a programmer error o gituyo sa programmer, gipapangayuan siya, be, kabaw ba jud kasi mong gibuhat unsa may imuhang target nga storage para butangan aning double. So, butangan na ito gitawag nga cast. Okay? So, it will specifically tell the computer that I know what I am doing. Ako anang gituyo nga i-convert na ko ang double into integer. So kung may information mawagtang dira, sala sa programmer. Og nang hunaw na si compiler. Okay? So that is the purpose of having casting or performing casting on those variables. And that is what we call as explicit conversion. Okay? So if you explicitly say that you are aware of what you are doing and you are aware that there will be a chance that there will be a loss in precision, and that is what we call as explicit conversion. Okay? Okay. So kani, how do we read an input in C#? Okay, so we know that in C programming, na kay scanif, na kay get, na kay gets, unsa pa? Na pa kay fgets, okay? Daghan kaayo. Okay? Mga functions that pwede nimong magamit to read an integer, a character, or a string. Okay? Now in C sharp programming, this is how you read, okay, an entry from the keyboard. Okay? So actually ang gamiton lang jud nimo is kani, read line. Okay, that is how you read an entry from the keyboard. But using the function read line is just like similar to gets. Okay, unsa man ang gets gani sa C programming? What does gets mean? Naka-gets ba mo ato? Anyone? Okay. Sige na, gamitan ninyo yung mic. Uy, kay kapoy kay basa sa chat box. Okay. Di bitaw na mapanimahuan inyong baba kung nanut-brush na ba or wala. Okay, come on, don't be shy. Okay. Oh, sige, Mr. Lebron. Okay, unsa tong gets sa C? What does it do?
Panzer. Kuha siya string.
Okay, so gets is short for get string. So
Get string.
basically anything that you have inputted on your keyboard, the moment you press enter, kwaon to niya tanang characters dito and treat it as a string. Okay, so ang terminator na to ato is ang enter key. So same ra pud na gihapon diri guys, natay function nga read line. Okay? So ang pagbasa sa input sa keyboard, ato aday na siyang gi-consider as a string. No, what if maghimo tag small program that would require us to read a number, a float, or an integer? What do we do? Okay? So ang approach ana ni C# is mogamit ta og kaning gitawag nga convert class. Okay? So naanapod ng term nga class. Okay? Unsa man ni gamit anang convert class? So ang gamit anang convert class guys is it would actually contain kaning gitawag nato nga mga static method nga pwede nato largo magamit for our program. Okay? Actually, C also has this. Okay? Mga function that can be used to convert a string type to integer type. And one good example ana nga function in C is kaning atoy. Okay? So, mura siya from an ASCII code to an integer. Mo nang gitawag niyang atoy. Okay? So, there's actually, again, a lot of functions pa nga pwede nimo magamit to convert a string to another data type. Okay? So, that, in a way, is also considered by C# as a good practice nga tanang input basahon niya as a string. And once mabasa nimo as a string, then you can do proceed on converting those string into the data type that you are targeting. Okay? Kung nakinomdo mo, di ba? When you are using scanf, you actually explicitly define that you will be reading an integer, a character, or a float. Di ba? Mo na ang medyo kapoy sa scanf, no? Kung gamiton ba nimo ang %f, %d, or %c, or %s baron. Okay? So, diri, para mawagtang ng problema ha, everything is read as a string. Nya, i-convert na lang na nimo later into your target type. Okay? So, as you can see here, guys, okay, it is not as simple as making use of the function automatically nga read line. Naapay system.console.readline. Okay? Why so long? Okay? So, the reason why medyo taas kay ni siya, guys, is basically kaning system is like the library. Okay? System is like the library. It's just similar to, let's say, kung sa C programming, nagbutang ka dirag include stdio. Okay? So, system is like a library to where you can find this so-called class. Okay? So, in this class, naay gidefine dira nga method, which is si readline. Okay? So, actually, daghan pa na siya, guys, nga mga function under sa console aside from readline. Okay? So, later, once you have installed niya, kanang sharp develop, makita nato unsa kagamit ang IDE in programming, especially for early or for beginner nga programmer. Okay? Kay naaman jud na siya mga functions nga dili kay ta familiar, and it is so tiresome if you keep on opening those API references. Okay? The IDE could actually help you identify unsa ning mga functions available under this class. Okay? So, kanang si convert is again a class that is located on the library system, or in C# term, kanang system, they call it as a namespace. Okay, but again, namespace is just another way of calling libraries. Okay, so as you can see here, pwede nimo i-convert ang string nimo into integer, pwede pud nimo i-convert si string nimo into a type double. Okay, but every time you read the keyboard, you always read them as a string. Okay, and that is how you can read an input, okay, of course, using the console application. Okay, so mo na si input. Okay, how do we generate an output? Okay, so again, still using the console class, instead of readline, we use the word right line to define the function name. Okay? Dali ra, di ba? Mahinumduman. Para pagbasa, read. Para pagsuwat sa screen, write. Okay? So, when you want to display your variables, pwede ra nimo ibutang as is like ang variable name, ibutang nimo as a parameter sa imuhang function nga right line. Now, if ganahan ka nga pare-pareha atong imuhang gibuhat in C programming nga mag-add ka og text and then you use %d, okay, to represent if it is decimal, float, or integer, okay, pwede ka mo gamit po ng ani nga syntax, guys. Okay? If you want to display multiple variables on your string. Okay? So you have here your string format. Okay? So just like sa printf, and then sa sulod, naa kay, of course, string constant. Then instead of using %d, %f, okay, you just simply make use of the so-called placeholder. Okay? Kung asa niya ibutang ang variable nga imuhang gipang-define diri nga iyahang ipa-display. So essentially, after the comma, kanang mga variable nga gipanglista nimo is actually labeled as 0, 1, 2, so on and so forth nga index. Igpa-display nimo diri sa imong string format, pwede ra na nimo actually usbon, like for example, ganahan nimo ibutang si D diri, so you put 1. Nya ang second butangan nimo 0 if you want I to be displayed in this format. Ang importante lang is you clearly identify the index of where your variable is declared on your right line method. Okay? So, mao na siya for generating an output. Okay? So, going back, since hassle man kaayo nga magsige kag type anang word nga system.console, system.convert, okay? Para malihayan nga magsige kag suwat anang system, pwede na nimo i-declare diri sa ibabaw, okay? Using the keyword, of course, using. Okay? So the keyword using provides us with a shorthand access to these classes and these functions. Okay? So making use of the keyword using is actually synonymous, guys, to using the keyword include. Okay? Kung nang mag-include kag another library. Okay? So we use the keyword using there. Okay? Pero of course, with the keyword using, napod siya another benefit. And that is, it helps provide a shorthand access to these classes. Okay? So medyo mas mapamubo na ang pag-type nimo. Okay. So next, we have here your comments. Okay? So I do believe you were already able to make use of the sharp asterisk and the double backslash. Okay? So we use these two here as our main way of adding comments to your C program. So we use backslash asterisk for multi-line comments, and we use double backslash for single line comments. Okay? In C Sharp, there is this so-called third way of commenting on your code. And we call it as the XML documentation comment. Okay? Unsa may gamit anang XML documentation comment. Okay? So XML documentation comment actually provides us with a dynamic way of creating comments on our code para while you are coding, this comment created using XML comments would actually help make it easier for you to trace those variables created or those functions created on your program. Okay? Moapil na siyang appear didto sa imuhang gitawag na IntelliSense as one of the features of the IDE. Okay, so later we will try to demonstrate that. Okay, so ato lang sa nang skipan. Okay, i-demonstrate na to later, ato na ipakita. Okay, so let me just go over the notes first. So again, operators. Okay, nabay operator diri nga wa ninyo mahibaw kung asa gamiton. Okay, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, remainder or the so-called modulo, left shift, right shift, bitwise, or XOR, and complement. Okay? I do believe na explain ni nato last time sa C programming. They're basically the same. Okay? But do you still remember, guys, what left shift and right shifts are? Wala na. Okay, how about ang bitwise? Okay. So, kanang bitwise na hinumduman pa, ang bitwise okay, hala, kalimtan nila. Okay. Sige. Left shift. Unsa may gamit anang left shift? Okay. Left shift. Unsa i-shift na to? Okay, murag ka nang musakay kag jeep, no? Okay. Pwede isdog. So, unsay mahitabo kung mo isdog? Okay. So, let's say you have here an integer. Okay, so integer a, which is equal to pila man, 8 baron. Okay, so maingon ko og a left shift 1. Okay, nga ibutang na natog variable nga b. Unsa may result ni b? What will be the value of b? So, para mahibawan nato pilay value ni b after shifting a to the left one time, okay, mo ni siya mo ni mando kung kapila nimo i-shift is that you convert 8 into binary. Okay, do you still remember binary number system? Saan ganito na pag-convert si 8 into binary? So, make use of positional weight. So, first, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So, everything is counting by 2. So, take note, unsa man ang 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Those are the weight of your binary bit. It is similar to saying 1, tens, hundreds, thousands, di ba? 10,000, 100,000 place. Okay, maur na siya. But of course, this is for decimal number system. And this is the binary number system. So, mingon kag 8. How is 8 written in binary? It is written as 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. Okay? So, when you say shift one time to the left, i-move na nimo ang tanang data sa variable A to the left one time. So, this is what it will look like. So, that means B will now be equal to what value? B will now be equal to 16. So, mo na ang left shift. Okay? So, maybe for now, dili kay ninyo ma-appreciate ang ihang gamit. But, igabot na ninyo o igabot niya ninyo o digital electronics ana inyo ka na siyang tawag ka na ma-appreciate. Okay? So it has also been used in a lot of algorithms. Okay? Kanang left shift o right shift. Okay? So that is actually also shown here, guys. Kanang gitawag nato nga Windows calculator under sa programmer. Okay? So let's say for example, na kay 8, di ba? Nya left shift. Kapila ni mo i-shift to the left, let's say 1 time. And mo na mo gawas 16. So let's say ang 16 i-shift nimo to the right, let's say 2 times. Pilay value, guys? Okay. 4. Okay. So nganong 4 man? Okay. So gikan sa 16, i-shift nimo twice, 1, 2. So pilay value? 4. Okay. So more ng idea, guys, sa left shift. You need to convert first your variable into binary para ma-visualize nimo what is happening inside the computer's memory. Okay? So, mo na siya. Mo na ito ang gitawag nga left shift o right shift operator. Okay? Now, how about bitwise operator? Okay? Natay OR, XOR, NOT, and none. So as you can see here, this is the AND, this is the OR, this is the XOR, and this is the NOT. Okay? Pero ang NOT diri, ang gigamit nato, dili katong exclamation mark, kung dili kaning gitawag nato nga tel design. Okay? Unsa man sad nay gamit anang mga bitwise operator. So let's see if I have 8, i-AND nako with 9. Pilay result. Ang result is equal to 8. Okay? Okay. 8. Pero what if I have 8? Ako ang i-OR with 9. What will be the result be? The result is 9. Okay? So let's say I have 7. Ako siyang i-AND with 8. Pilay result? 0. Okay. Does everything make sense? Na bawan ba asa siya gi kuha ning mananapa ni? Okay. How does AND or XOR and the so-called bitwise complement works? Okay. So for that, let's try to remember your physics or your basic electricity. Okay? Nada ba mo yung series o parallel nga discussion, guys? Sa inyong basic electricity, na naman siguro mo ano? Series circuits o parallel circuits? Hello?
Pag-grade 10 sama sir, man na sir.
Okay. And how do you find that subject? Kanang topic lang sa series of parallel connection. Okay. So when you say series, ano yung sabot ng series connection? Sa inyo sabta na sa series connection. How is series connection done?
Usara ka linyada, sir.
Usara ka linyada. Okay, so let's say mo ni ang positive, mo ni ang negative na linya. So if I have a switch that has been connected like this. Okay, I call this as switch A and switch B. And I put my lamp here. Okay, and this is another circuit. I put my switch here. O asan ko po ang eraser. Huwag matapas. Okay, so kanang may X mo nang ako ang lamp. So ngani guys, okay, which of these two here are considered as the series circuit o asa si parallel circuit?
Ang first kay series.
Okay, ang usa is series.
Yang second kay parallel.
Okay. So parallel. Ano naman tao mo? So this is the series and this is parallel. Okay. So when you talk about series circuit, so parallel circuit, okay, it's more on how you will be controlling your light bulb. Okay. So I think ang inyo siguro no during that time is focus on sa load na may gisuot diri sinyada. Series is kuan kanang connected ang duha ka light bulb sa usa ka switch. Okay? So naabiyay concept nga ani na kay usa ka switch. Pero ang light bulb nimo is connected in this manner. Okay? Diba? Or it could also be interpreted as like this. Okay. So, kung ing ani Mr. Niadas, okay? Which one of this is ang series? C1 or C2? Okay. Sige guys, kani ko no. Ang 2 is ang series, okay? Ang kang umandak, both are series. Hala. Okay. So, unsa may tinuod ani? Be, let's try voting. For number 1, unsa maning number 1? Series or parallel? Raise up your hand. Oh, sige, raise up your hand if ang inyong vote is series na siya nga circuit. Okay. So, series, nay usa. Oh, nay duha di ay. Okay, series. This is tubutanganan ha, votation. Series and parallel. Series, duha. Okay, who says this is parallel? Isa ang kamot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, so yara. Asa naman to? So there were like pila man to? Wako kapas, so we have 15. Okay. How about for number 2? Unsa man is number 2? Series. Who vote for series? Sa number 2. Number 2 is series. 1, 13, 14, 13. Okay. So, na ay 20 para sa series. Okay. For parallel, who says it's parallel? So, parallel ni siya. Kinsa may niboto og parallel. Kinsa mo to ni raise up kanina. Usa na lang. So, usa na lang sa parallel. Who says they are both series? Okay. Or both circuit are series. So, atong butangan, both series. So, there are 2. Oh, 3 di ay. 3 who says both are series. Who says both are parallel circuits? Who says both are parallel circuit? O na usa. Who says parallel? Okay. So, tanaw na to. Okay? So, sugdan sa nato dire. Kaning sanay suga nga gi-control. Okay? So, here, naratay usa ka switch to control ang suga. Ang suga nato are connected in these two ways. Okay? So, nainisulti nga both circuit 1 and 2 are considered as series circuit. Okay, naitulo. Okay, unfortunately, you got this wrong. Okay, so those are two different circuits. So that means when we say both are parallel circuit, this is also wrong. Okay, because again, these are two different circuits. Okay, now let's say based sa mutation, the first circuit is said to be in series. We have a vote of 2 and 15. So majority says it's parallel. So since this is a democratic country, we say the majority wins. Okay? Ang naon tal. Pero ako natuon niya. Kung mao ba jud. Okay? Saon na lang. Okay? Lisod kaayo, mas daghag vote si BBM niya, ang mudaog si Lenny gihapon. So anyway, tanaw na to. So on the next number we have unsa ni siya? 20 sa series ug 1 sa parallel. So again, majority series. Okay? Now, if I ask you guys, unsa man di ay characteristic sa series circuit? Why were you able to say that circuits are connected in series or a circuit is connected in parallel? Unsa inyuhang mura gigamit nga definition for it to be considered as a series or parallel?
Sa parallel sir kay duha ka parallel nga line. So duha ka linyada sa kuan.
Duha ka parallel line.
Ay usa ka parallel line di sir.
Usa ka parallel line.
Eh, duha naman na parallel.
Duha parallel naman. Okay. So unsa mo gyud nang parallel di ay? When you say parallel,
Two lines.
two lines. Okay. Sige, two lines. So mo na ang atoa nay duha ka linya. How about series? Unsay definition na to ana mahatag sa series? When can we say it is a series circuit?
Single, sir.
Single. Okay. So dire daghan mang series. Okay. So what is your relationship status? Pwede ra dito mo sir series. Okay. Pwede rin nato magamit no para sa relationship status. Series, single. Okay? Na ako'y bagong nakatunan ronda. Gamiton niya ako na. Oh, parallel naman day ko. Okay. So, anyway, okay, I'll give you another one, guys. Another definition of how you might categorize if the circuit is in series or in parallel. Okay? Now, take note when you say series, okay? Unsa may characteristic sa kurente in a series circuit? Okay, kana. Let's try to review your basic electricity, okay? Manong naghisgot man tag electricity, oy nga programming man ni sir. Okay? So, guys, again, when you do your program, okay, it's not all about lang guys. It's not all about knowing the syntax, okay, knowing the language. Take note, unsa may i-program nimo kung wala kay foundation for your algorithms. Okay? And what is algorithm? Basically, an algorithm, di ba, is like a step-by-step process on how to arrive at a solution. Okay? So, basically, step-by-step process, murag math. Di ba? Na kay step-by-step process nga gisunod to arrive at a solution. Okay? So, just like math, di ba? Ang electronics naman sa math. So, okay. So, kana ding ako ang nakatunan sa electronics, pwede na nako gamiton to create programs. Yes. Okay? So, mo nang, let's say, for instance, on your case, guys, kung nay company mang hire, kinsa may hire nila, kanibang graduate og IT or kaning graduate og computer engineering. Okay? Most of these companies would rather hire graduates of computer engineering kay nganuman ang engineering manggod nga field na ay nindot nga foundation on math, which is basically one of the requirement basically to be a good programmer. It's not just all about memorizing unsa nga syntax programming language nga imong nibaw-an. It also has to do with your foundation. Kay let's say for example, magpa-create og program ang imuhang amo on how to create or to compute the power sa given circuit. Mangutana ko ang IT makabuhat ana nga on the first place unsa din ng power, unsaon na pag-compute. But ikaw, kung engineer ka, especially ComE, nag-agi man mo basic electricity, mag-agi pod mo niya later og electronics, you know how it works. So if you know how it works, you can actually create an algorithm for that on how to compute for it. Okay? So, manay na balik-balik kuno kay tani electronics. Okay? So actually kaning electronics, electrical, it also has its history with programming on how your computers works and how programming languages were designed. Okay? So related na diri. Okay? So when we talk about yes, kani na answer si Miss Magubat. Going to the question, balik no katong series. How does current behave in a series circuit, Miss Manggubat? Sige, go. Or unsa ba to? Nakay question Miss Manggubat or mutubag ka? Hello? Wala. Wala kay pangutana, nya na kay itubag. Kuyaw. Sana all student pero okay, mo answer. Okay, sige. So sige guys, how does current behave in a series circuit? Okay? So kung naakoy suga diri. Okay? Nya naapod koy another suga diri. Ang current nga moaagi aning sugaa ug ang current nga aning sugaa, how are they related to each other? So let's say kaning suga nimo is like a resistor, di ba? Na siya resistance of 10 ohms. Kaning suga dire na ako'y resistance nga 20 ohms. Okay? So this is a series circuit. Kuya why nagamit mang electrical. Okay? So ang current nga moagi ani nga circuit unsa man, mas dako ba ang moagi nga kuryente sa 10 ohms nga resistor or mas dako ba ang kuryente moagi sa 20 ohms nga resistor? Okay. Hello, electrical. Okay. The same ra. Okay. Same ra sila sa 10 ohms. Okay. So take note, in a series circuit, o sa ganito, current is the same. Okay. However, if you have a circuit like this, okay, so if this has 10 ohms and this is 20 ohms, okay, ang current nga moagi diri sa 10 ohms o 20 ohms unsa man? Are they equal also? Or mas dako ang kuryente moagi sa 10 ohms or mas dako ang kuryente moagi sa 20 ohms? Okay, unsa may ato ang kun ana guys? Decision ana. Wala, nalimot na sila ang electrical ay electrical.
Murag di, sir.
Murag di sila equal. Okay? Oh, di
Kay kung mas layo, tingi, sir, kay mas gamay ang makuha.
Olo, patay. Kuyawan jud ko aning kuan jud online class. Okay? Kung sa may basihan nato kung ang kuryente nga moagi sa bulb is mas dako or mas gamay. Okay? How is current and resistance, or what is the relationship between the current and resistance? Okay. So may saktuan. So, kung ang resistance mo gamay, okay, unsa may dagan sa kuryente? Directly proportional or inversely proportional? Okay. So, the current flowing through the circuit is directly proportional to the voltage. Pero kung gipungutan na about resistance man. Okay, so inversely proportional to the resistance. Kaya of course, di ba? Kung naay dako nga mo resist, so ang kuryente makaagi mas mo gamay. Okay, so current and resistance are inversely proportional. That means the current flowing here, ang 10 ohms is bigger than the current flowing in the 20 ohms. So guys, ang timan-an lang juday ninyo ana kanang series o parallel is in the event that ang kurente nimo is constant sa circuit, series na siya. Okay? Now, if ang current breaks down, okay, into two or more, mo na gitawag na ito nga parallel connection. Okay? And how will you know that it breaks down? Naay ka nang gitawag na ito nga node of connection. Okay? So, that means ang majority here wins. Okay? This is the parallel connection and this is the series connection. Okay? Na ang series of parallel connection is not limited lang to the load or kanang gitawag nato nga suga. It is also common here in electrical circuits on how your switches are positioned. And essentially, kaning si AND o si OR diri guys is maunay gibasihan sa kani nga operation. And which one exactly? Okay? Now, kung tan-aw na to diri guys, okay? Para ang kaning suga musiga, how would you construct your sentence based on the switch A and B? Okay? Para musiga ang suga, unsa may conditions?
Sir, i-turn on either A or B nga switch.
Okay? Para musiga ang kaning nga suga?
Oh, sir.
Okay. So you were using the word either. Okay? So if we use either, posible day maka-turn on si B lang sa suga. Yeah, kung magtanaw ta sa illustration, is that possible? Nga I will only turn on B or I will only turn on A? Okay? Nakita ninyo guys? Okay? Unsa to? Both dapat. Okay? Si A ug si B naka-on. Or another way to say it is to turn on the lamp, dapat si A and si B naka-on. Okay? Diba? That's how you construct the sentence. Okay? Para masiga ang kani nga suga. Now, how about kani nga circuit? Okay? Unsa may gamiton nato to relate A and B para mosiga ang kani nga suga? Okay? Sige, how do we construct that sentence? Okay. So, para mosiga ang suga, you could turn on A or B. Di ba? Kay pwede man mapasiga nimo ang suga using A or B. Okay? Now, if you are gonna be using this operator, guys, kaning and ug or, imagine na lang ni siya nga circuit. Okay? Imagine na lang na siya nga circuit. Para musiga ang suga, dapat naka-on both A and B. Kay kung usaray na naka-on si A, off ra gihapon ang suga. So zero ra gihapon ang suga. So take note, when you say naka-on, it is synonymous with 1. When you say naka-off, it is synonymous with 0. So that is applicable to both the switch and the lamp. Yeah, diri po, as you can see, if si A naka-on, siga ang suga. So si B, bisag naka-on o naka-off pa na siya, magsiga ra jud na permi ang suga. Okay? Now, if we go back here, okay, why is it that when I have 8, okay, mo gamit ko ni AND, then i-AND ako with 6, it gives me 0. But if I have 8, ako ang i-add with 9, it will give me 8 still. If I have 8, i-add na ko with 12, it will also give me 8. Okay? Unsa may nahitabuan ni? How does add works with numbers? Okay? Kay numbers man good, dili man na siya on and off, sir. Di man ako pwede ma-relate as zeros and 1. So the answer for that, guys, is you convert the number into binary. So let's say 8. What is the binary of 8? 1, 0, 0, 0. Di ba? And what is the binary of 9? 1, 0, 0, 1. And nganong na 8 man ang answer when I use 8 gi-and nako with 9. Okay? Why is the answer 8? Kay when you use the and di nga operator, what the computer actually does is it performs and operation bit by bit. So you say, kani naka 0, kani naka 1, unsay status sa suga? Di ba? 0, naka off, kay series man siya. So dapat both naka-on para musiga. So off, off, so 0, 0. So kani naka-on, so therefore naka-on pod. And that is how we got 8. Okay? Na gets ba ninyo, guys? How the AND operation works? Okay. So the same is also true if you perform the OR operation. So if you say 8, naka-OR with 9, so what's the result? It is still 9. Kaya nga naman, when you use OR, okay, so when you use OR, you are performing parallel operation. So that means either sa duha, kung 9 nag-on, the result is naka-on. And that's how we got 9. Okay? So, ang technique ra di ay para mahibaw-an nimo ang result sa duha ka numbers nga imong gi-applyan og OR and AND is by simply converting it to binary. Okay? So, just like what I did with left shift and right shift. I-convert lang nato na into binary. Okay? Now, how about XOR? Okay? Unsa man sa din XOR? Asa man sa na siya gibase ng mananapa na? So again, if I have 8, mogamit kog XOR. Gi-XOR na ko with 3. What is the result? The result is 11. Okay? So let me just put that here in a notepad. Kay murag kapoy naman i-drawing. Lisod kay i-drawing. So, unsa ganito? 8, 0, 0. Then, XOR na to with 3, 0, 0, 1, 1. So, we use XOR. Kung unsay result ni gawas, ang result na ni gawas after performing that operation is 11, which is in binary 1, 0, 1, 1. Okay? So, mo na ang result. Okay? So, let's try to see more examples para makakita mo pattern as to what is happening. Okay, so let's say I have 8 again. Ako ang XOR with 9. Okay, and what is the result? The result is 1. Okay, so 8 XOR na ko with 9, and the result there is 1. Okay, nakakita mo og pattern, guys, unsay nahitabo when performing XOR operation? What have you noticed? Hello? If both are true, then ano to siya? If both are true, then false. If both are true, then false. So, kanino ang gibasihan? If both are true, then false. Mo nang na zero. Pero kanusa man siya ma-true? If either is true, then true. Yeah, if both are false, unsaon na nato siya? If both are false. False gihapon. Okay? Pwede ba guys? What do you think? Okay. So the same. Okay. Now, if you look closely, okay, tanawa lang, if you look closely, kung kani naka 1, nya kani naka 0, asam na siya ni fall dire. If either is true, then true. If either. Pero, pwede ba, ma-apply ba na? If either is true. Nya, naaman diri, duha naka true. So, mo preside ang if both are true, then false. So, which comes first? Which rule come first? So, nadira ang murag discrepancy ba? Kay natay rule nga if both are true, then false. Then, if either is true, then true. So, kani mo fall man siya if either is true. So, dapat mo true pod ni. Okay? So, na-conflict sa rule. No? Okay. If one is true, then true. Okay? Galibog na. If one is true, then true. Nya, if true is true, mo false. Okay? So, actually, kanang XOR, okay, is an operator commonly used in digital communication. Okay? So, it is one of those gitawag na to nga logic operation that is utilized to detect kanang gitawag na to nga odd ug even numbers. Okay? Now, kung magtan-aw lang sabta sa ato ang kani example nato, actually makakuha na tag idea as to what it is really doing. Okay? Let's say this is the first number and this is the number nga ato ang gi-perform using the XOR operation. If you check carefully guys, kung naka 1 ni siya, okay, ang buhaton actually niya is, okay, let me give you one more example. Kani. Let me give you one more example. Kani. Okay ra day. Naara day dire. Okay? So, if you look closely here, okay, katong number nga inyong gi-XOR with the first number, kung naka 1, iyahang balihon. Have you noticed? Since naka 1 ni siya, therefore, any number nga natunong niya, balihon. Pero kung 0 gani, kung unsa to nga number na adira, as is ra niyang kopyaon. Kabantay mo? Okay. Sakto ba? Awa. Kani, puro naka 1. So, kaning 0, gi 1, 1. Kani dire, naka 0. So, kaning number nga nasa ibabaw, igo ra nato gikopya. Would that rule apply to the one below? So, as you can see, kung 0, mahimong 1. Kung 0, ang gi-XOR nimo as is ra siya, maikopya nimo. Since naka 1 man siya dire, again, ang number nasa ibabaw, balihon. So, ang 1, mahimong 0. Okay? So, that's basically another way of looking at this so-called OR operation. Okay? So, mo na guys ang atoang XOR. Okay? Now, what if daghan nga number nga ipang XOR nimo? Okay? Like, for example, na yung ani. 0101, 1100, 0110. Okay? How would you perform XOR operation on this number nga di raman duha, tulo naman? Okay? So gamiton tong nakatunan ninyo pag ninyo guys, pag elementary ninyo, kung naamoy numbers nga ipang-add, nga daghan na, di ba? Ang inyong buhaton, unahon sa ninyo mag-add. After na nimo na-add, then you add this other number. In this case, we XOR the third number. Okay? So, pwede ra po na nimo ma-apply. Okay? However, okay, what you could also do is, again, kanang XOR operation, gigamit na siya sa digital communication to detect binary numbers nga even o odd number. Okay? So kung magtan-aw pud ka dire, makita pud nimo nga if there are even numbers of ones on that column, expected 0. If there is an odd number of ones, then it is 1. So would that rule apply here? Kung magtanaw ka 0, 1, there is an odd number of ones, so the output is 1. So kung na kay multiple nga XOR operation gi-perform, okay, that means the result here would be 1, 1, 1, og 1. Okay, so if you're gonna be checking that here on your Windows calculator, okay, so unsa gani na siya? 5 naka-XOR with 12. Okay, naka-XOR pa jud with 6. Okay, so you'll have 15, which is 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, so again, that's another way of looking at it. Hello, hello. Guys, are you still there? Wala pa magdugo ang ilong? Okay. So, mora na itiman-in ninyo. Timanan ninyo sa XOR. Okay? XOR operation. Okay? So, kung ang series, okay, is done on switches, nga ani ang connection, niya ang kanang parallel is done like this, niya mo na equivalent to OR sa programming, unsa equivalent ni XOR in terms of electrical switches. Okay? So, mo niyang equivalent ni XOR, guys. I do believe you have also used this at your homes. Okay? That operation of the XOR is being utilized on electrical systems wherein you control your light from 2 or more sources or 2 or more switches. Here is an example wherein you can control your light from 2 switches. Okay? Mo na makabantay mo. Na yung mga switches wala lagi marka kung on o off. Kay nga naman, kung ingani ang switch nako naka-off siya ang si switch A. Pero if si switch B ako ang i-on dire, di ba? Musiga na ang suga. And I can actually also turn off the switch or the light here from A by moving my switch ing ani. Okay? So kung ani una ko ang connection, di ba? Ma-off na sad siya. If I want to turn it on again, pwede ra pud si B na ko ang ako ang usbon para mo on ang suga. Okay? This is what we call as a two-way switch sa electrical, which is basically pwede ra pud na nimo ma-incorporate diri sa programming by using kaning gitawag nato nga bitwise OR. Okay? So that's just one application kaning gitawag nato nga XOR nga logic. Okay? So sagdi lang. For now, probably you are not finding an application for the XOR operation, but as you move along to your higher subjects na binag-iabot ninyo data communication, makita ninyo ang say relevance niya ani kaning XOR. Very important siya when you will be using it for creating algorithms in communication. Okay? So anyway, padayon ta. Bitwise complement. Unsa man sila si bitwise complement. Okay? So bitwise complement is represented by this operation not. Again, let me give you an example. I have 8, then I press not. So unsay gihatag sa ato Ang 8 nahimong negative 9. Okay? So let's make the size of the data smaller. So kana if I press not again, ang negative 9 mahimong 8. So what happened? I have 7. If I press not, it becomes negative 8. Okay? Unsay nahitabo? Na by pattern, have you seen a pattern here? If I have 3, if I press not, it becomes a negative number. Okay. So unsay pattern na bantayan, guys?
Hash.
Oh, yes, Miss Toto. Unsa to? Hash. Hopefully, di na dyan to iro nga nakapislit sa keyboard.
Sorry sir, trippingan sa kumanghod.
Oh, so manghod na di ay. Okay, at least di na iro. Manghod na. Okay, sige. Mr. Omanda, unsay nabantayan nimo nga pattern sa kanang operator not?
Kailang kung unsay number nga gi-input nimo nga positive sir, example 3, plusan nimo 1 sir niya, negative nimo ang kanang nga number.
Plusan nimo og 1 nya in negative. So kung positive. So let's say ingani unsa to? Na ako'y 6 nga number positive, unsaon to?
Plus 1 sir.
Plus 1 unya
7. Yeah, in negative.
Yeah, in negative.
Ana sir.
Okay. So if we try it here, so we have 6. Then ignat na to mahimong negative 7. Okay? Kita ninyo guys? Okay? So, if let's say na ako'y 12, ako ang inat. So, nahimong negative 13. Okay? So, gi plus 1, nahimong negative. Okay? So, if you look at it on the decimal nga standpoint, mo na yung mabantayan ninyo. Diba? Murag plus 1 ra. Sa iyahang actual value niya in negative lang. Okay? Now, what actually happens there, guys, okay, is that kung naa kay positive number like kani siya 1001, when you use not, okay, ang gibuhat actually ana niya is iyahara ng gibali ang bits nga 1 ug 0. So kung 9 in binary is 1001, kung imuhang balihon, it becomes 0110. Pero kung mauna, sir, this is 9, niya after performing the NOT operation, 6 man lagi na siya. Okay? Now, what happens there is dapat mahibaw-an sad nato ang storage. In this case, that is a byte. Okay? Unsa man ang byte? Byte is 8 bits. And this is the importance, guys, nga naa kay data type. Okay? So, pag not nato, tanang zeros na himong 1 diri. Okay? And this is actually the representation of -6. Okay? Okay, yes. Nakahinumdum na dyan si Mr. Sumalinog. And this is what we call as the 2's complement. Okay, nagamit dyan. Okay, so this was actually discussed in programming, di ba? When we were discussing about data types, katong signed o unsigned. Okay, so kanang na negative nga nakita nimo dira is a result of inverting each bit sa imuhang given number. Okay, so when you say not operation, it's just a matter of inverting each bit on your variable. Okay? So, maor na siya. So, CO, -10. Bisan pag dako ang imuhang value dira, di ba? Mas daghan ng ones. The fact that the most significant bit is 1, it will be inverted bit by bit and i-add lang kag 1 to get the weight of that number. Okay? And that is how bitwise complement work. Okay? So it is different from the not operation nga logical operation nga exclamation mark, which is basically used for Boolean value nga ang true himong false, ang false himong true. When you use the tell design, which is a bitwise complement, iyaha na siyang i-change bit by bit. So manang as a programmer, it is important for you guys to know about the binary number system. Okay? Okay, if you know the binary number system, it will be easier for you to understand this operator. Kay kani nga operator works on a binary level. So anyway, padayon na ta. Okay, so ubay-ubay pa ni. So again, these are just some of the operators nga adtuan ang nagian during C programming. Okay? So, kung say tawag na to ani nga mga operator, these are just shorthand notation kung nakahinomdom pa mo. Okay? So, what is the purpose of this one? Okay? So, ang purpose ani is para i-simplify ang pag-write og expression nga instead nga moingon pa ka og x is equal to x plus 2, you can simply write it like this. Okay? So, maura jud na siya ang purpose ani. Okay? Equivalent ra sa C. So, whatever it is that you do in C for shorthand notation, you can actually apply it also here in C#. Okay? So, kung tanaw na to, there's not much of a difference jud di ay. Okay? So, another shorthand operator nga pwede nato magamit is ang pre-increment o post-increment for your minus, minus, and plus, plus. Again, same ra ang idea, guys. Okay? So, another operator is ang conditional operator or kanang gitawag nato nga ternary operator. Okay? Kay nganong gitawag man siyang ternary operator? Any idea, guys? Do you still remember why this is called ternary operator? Anyone? Kinsay nakahinumdom nganong gitawag ni siyang ternary operator? Okay? Because most of the operators that we use is binary operator. But this operator is what we refer to as a ternary operator. Nganong gitawag na siyang ternary? Nganong gitawag na siyang binary? Nganong gitawag nga unary operator? Three operands. Very good. Okay? So, kasagaran gipanggamit nato are binary operators because it involves two operands for it to function. Diba? Let's say A plus B. That is a binary operator because it requires two operands. Kani, si post og pre-increment, this is what we call as a unary operator because it only requires one operand. Kani, conditional or the so-called ternary operator is requiring you to make use of manong upat man ni. So, for nary unta ni siyang operator. Okay? So, actually, it only requires three operands. Okay? If it is true, if it is false. Ya, kani, nganong na pa may duha, this is considered as one operator. Okay, and this is what you call as the condition. Okay, so murag nag-variable nagigamit. So actually, there's only three operators here. The condition, if it is true, and if it is false. Okay? Hello? You still there, guys? Okay, so hopefully you still remember that. Okay, naragya po na siya sa singa discussion. And let's move on to the array. We only have 9 more minutes. Okay, so we have this. Okay, now array. What is an array? So we already know that an array helps provide an efficient storage of multiple data elements. Okay, we use array to store data of the same type. Okay. Now, how does the array in C# differs from the array in C? Okay. Now, if we look at this part here, how to access your array, how to read to an array, how to write to an array, basically they're the same, guys. Okay. You still make use of the so-called index. Okay? Para mag-access ka sa storage. And how to read that array storage, again, you make use of your index to specify ikapilang elements sa array ang imong i-access. Okay? Major difference lang niya is how you declare your array. Okay? So, dara, very good. Nakabantay sa kanyon ni Go. When you are in C, kaning brackets, you put it after the variable name. Pero dire, in C#, when you declare an array, you put the square brackets before the variable name. Okay? So that is how you create a variable in C# when declaring the so-called arrays. Okay? Now, another thing na wala sa C, okay, is ang keyword nga new. Okay? Now, typically in C, if you want to create an array and you want to allocate this number of elements, you typically use this syntax. Diba? Int A, then you put here 5, indicating that you need 5 elements, or you need to create 5 elements of this array. But here in C#, medyo a little bit more complicated. Okay? So aside from this square bracket being being relocated, nagamit pa jud ka diri og keyword nga new. Okay? And this time gibalik to pod nimo ang data type niya pilay size sa array. So you don't define the size of the array on the left side of your equation. You define the size of the array on the right side of the equation. Okay? So one of the reasons why that is done, because the array elements created are converted into objects. Naa na pud ng objects. Nganong naa may objects? Nganong lahi man si array? Okay? Now, one advantage of converting an array into an object is that since array is now an object, you can access different properties of the array. Like, for example, if you want to know the length of the array, okay, ang buhaton nimo is just call out the variable name, you use the dot operator, then you type in the length property, and that will return to you a value of 5, indicating the number of elements allocated for that array. Okay? In C, how did we do this in C? How will we know pilay size sa ato ang array? Okay? So what we actually do in C programming for us to be able to identify kung pilay size sa array is gagamit ta og size of operator. Di ba? So once mahibaw-an nimo pilay size sa gigamit sa array in C, you then divide it with the size of unsa may type ni A, int. Okay? So this is what we do in C to determine pilay size sa ato ang array, which is a bit cumbersome. But since object naman ni si array, you can actually access mga values, okay, that you were not able to do in a C language. Okay? So, sige lang. Next meeting, we will have a laboratory ato anong i-demonstrate dito. And hopefully, most of you will be able to download katong Sharp Develop, okay, or pwede po ang katong Visual Studio. Okay? So grabe no, paspasan nato ani ang one semester na human og 3 hours. Okay? So anyway, here are other ways of how you can initialize an array in C. Okay? So again, all you need to do is specify the data type, then indicate that it is an array using a square bracket, then the variable name. Okay, to define the size, again, don't forget to make use of the keyword new, the data type, then you define the size using the square brackets. Okay, so as what we can see, when you create your array in this manner, it will automatically be initialized with a default value. In C, when you define an array and specify the number of array elements, dili na niya i-initialize ang imong value. It will have this so-called garbage value. But in C#, automatic, i-initialize niya ang value to 0. Or in this case, kung boolean, naka-false. Okay? Now, what if ganahan ko butangag value daan ng array? Then you can also actually initialize it just like in C, adding an initializer list. Okay, but of course, this is a longer way or a more cumbersome way to do it. If you already have this so-called initializer list, pwede ra ni siya di na nimo ibutang guys. You can remove that. And automatically C# will know that you are creating an array with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. So automatic. Create din na siya og array with 5 elements having this value inside it. Okay? So, mao na siya ang sa topic on arrays. So again, conditional statement. Not much to say about here. Kung tanaw na to, pari-pariha ra jud ni siya sa C programming. Okay? Na kay if na statement, na if else, of course, na apoy else if. Okay? So, same ra ni siya og kwan guys. Same ra og rule. Okay? So, if you are gonna be talking about another conditional statement like switch, naapod ni siya si C#. Nya, kung magtanaw ta, again, the same rules is being applied. You make use of the switch keyword, then you place here the variable name. You make use of the keyword case, then kung unsay dapat ibutang nimo diri is a constant value as defined by the type being used by this variable. In this case, si grade is a character, so you compare it with a character. But of course, we know that a character has an equivalent ASCII code. You can also use that. Okay? So of course, mandatory para dili mo overflow, dili siya mudagan to the next condition. Every condition, every case, you need to put the mandatory break statement. Okay? And of course, ang default. For those conditions nga dili mo fall sa kaning mga case statements imong gi-define. Okay? So, actually, if we move forward, guys, again, mga control statements, ang while loop, naaghapon siya. Ang do while, pari-pariha ra pud sa C. Ang for loop, same ra gihapon. Okay? Naalay additional gi-add sa control statement, ang kaning for each. Okay? So, sige lang. Next meeting, we will be talking about this part of the control statement, ang for each. This is something nga wala sa C before. Okay? And ato ang tan-awon, unsa may advantage of using for each loop compared sa for loop sa while o sa do while. Okay, so probably let's end the topic here and we will proceed with the discussion next meeting, and we will also be having a laboratory exercise. Okay, so ato lang i-convert niya nato ang inyong mga programs that you were doing in C before and use C#. Okay, so hopefully everyone will be able to download Sharp Develop. Kung magkalisod gani, we'll just use code chum again. Okay, para na online compiler. Okay, so before we go, can we turn on our camera again for our attendance? Asa makuha ang enrollment assessment form, aka COR. Okay, so pwede rin ninyo ma-download guys sa SIS portal. Login lang. Okay, so muna siya ang enrollment assessment form, aka COR.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sa katong kuan sir ba, atong grades nga gipakuan na mo for scholarship. Within this week na to, sir.
Hala. Sound. Problema dyan kung saan paghuwat. Basta maora man tong lista nga names no, inyong gihatag no. Kay maora to ako ang gi-priority sa ug himo. This week na to ba? Sige. Paapas lang ko. Nya, Mayor, mamalihog lang ko ha katong update information katong sa ako ang gi-post sa ato ang groups paki-fill up lang ato kung kinsa pa nga mga teacher ang wala pa mo respond para ato ang makontak.
Ang kuan na mo sir, lab na mo sa physics sir, na may kuan sir.
Wala pa jay balita sa kas kung kinsa ilahang ipuli. Kay murag nagproblema sad siguro sila loading. Murag ambot lang nga karon ra siguro na naka-decide si ma'am kay dugay naman gud siya nga schedule last year pa man na. Okay. So far usa ra man no si Ma'am Bugtay sa laboratory.
Yes sir.
Okay. How about si Lim?
Na-contact na nako si ma'am sir.
Ni-reply na. Okay. Sige. So what lang na guys, come on, dali na mga una ta. Palihog lag onas camera. LeBron James, Sinisa, kinsa pa man. Swan, Kapisnon, where na you?
Sa ubang kuan sir, sa ubang subjects na mo sir, mo message pa ko sir para matagaan mi og grado.
Sa ubang subjects, mas maayo siguro katong labi na katong minor. Kamo na lang message kay wala ko'y direct hold good nila kanirang sa mga major niya ako pa jud. I will PM myself to remind myself I need to submit to the grades.
Sa pangkad na mo sir. Di jud ko contact jud sir, wa jud reply sir. Puno na to yung inbox.
Sagdi lang no kay magpatabang na ko ani sa din kay siya may amo ang gistoryaan about last week. Ingon si din kung di gihapon mo reply, tell me because I will call him. So wala man jud mo reply. Bisag among secretary diri di ba sa replyan. So maybe we'll ask our dean to call him. Kay bisag kami di jud na mo siya madakpan yan hiday last week sa school. Wa jud na mo bakit? Okay. So anyway, sorry for that. Sagdi lang di na ta maka-encounter og problema related ato kay di naman nato i-appeal sa to ang roster of faculties. Okay. Kanina lang yung pag-submit on time may problema. Ay, sige na lang. Hopefully wa na laing bagyo mo abot para di na punta uwahi. Sige, at my count, kapisnon, di na maon ang camera. Dali, kay bisag matumba na pod ni sa iro ang ilahang keyboard. 1, 2, yara, apil ko, ang kansi ko da. Okay, at my count, 1, 2, 3, dugaya mo on sa akong camera. Di-on akong camera guys, wa pa. Auto ra. Sige. At my count, 1, 2, 3, cheese. Okay. Keso. Thank you. That will be it for now, guys. So, mabalihog lang ko, Mayor. Paki-update lang niya atong information. Okay, para kung naidi pa makontak na teacher, ato ang kontakon para of course makasugod sad mo og klase. Bisag mapareha to last time nga midterm na wag gyapon magsugod ang klase kay wa day teacher wa jud mosulti. Okay, so thank you and I'll be seeing you again next meeting. God bless everyone. Goodbye.
Bye sir, thank you.
Thank you, sir.